Subscribe to both of my YouTube channels, Sharon Winbush, Goddess Sharon, Sharon with 2 R's. Turn on notifications, like videos, share the videos with everyone that you know, and share them globally. Thank you. I'm going to break down the Rule 33 motion for ineffective counsel based on voir dire. I've already read it verbatim, word for word, so that you understand exactly what was said, and that is in my video on the motions, number 8A of 8. So you can listen to that, but this is me giving you my thoughts and my opinions based on my inside knowledge of the case, talking to people that were at the table and communicating with those who were instructing Robert on certain decisions. So Robert knows who sat at that table with him. Robert knows who he delegated responsibility to. Robert knows who was in charge of jury selection. He knows who conducted the entire trial. He knows who gave the witnesses information and he knows who put on a 2-day trial, defense trial. He knows who gave the jurors their evidence of one sheet of paper. He's very clear on that. He may not have understood how that affected the outcome, but Jennifer Bongine certainly broke that down to him. But Robert is very aware because he sat in that courtroom and he sat right next to his 4 attorneys. So he's 100% clear Devereaux Canick conducted voir dire. He's 100% certain Devereaux Canick took over 95% of the trial. He's 100% certain Devereaux Canick put on a 2-day defense. He's 100% certain they had 5 witnesses. He's 100% certain they gave the jury one sheet of paper. Robert knows this better than anybody. So there's no new information to him. He probably didn't understand how it impacted the 9 guilty verdicts, but that's what Bongine was there to explain to him. Jennifer Bongine came in and looked at every single piece of evidence, all the transcripts that were non-redacted, and she talked to her client, Robert Kelly, thoroughly. She interviewed each of the attorneys thoroughly. She has a very clear understanding of what happened in that courtroom because she's a lawyer. So she knows what a good lawyer would do, and she knows what an ineffective counsel would do. And that's why she is doing the motions that she's doing. So when she points out the voir dire issue with Canick, it's because that's the only thing she can use, because it's got to be based on things in the trial. Did he do those other things? Absolutely. But the court is not responsible for you hiring incompetent attorneys. The court is not responsible for you hiring someone who fucked your case up. You have the right to the lawyer's counsel of your choice. And it is your choice. You chose these people. So all she can do is now try to get him out of the mess that was created from people in his ear telling him, A, he needs to hire this person, and B, they need to take over the case because of a variety of reasons. I am going to give my opinions now on the motions for the first Rule 33 motion for a new trial. and then the subsequent motion. So I'll start with the first motion, which is the Rule 33 motion for a new trial. Part one of that motion was asking the court for a new trial based on the improper voir dire that was conducted. So let's go through that and break it down step by step. First, she emphasized, and I won't go through it line by line because I have already done a video on that. It is the 8A of 8 motion for a new trial by Jennifer Bonjean in my YouTube videos. So you can go back and look at that. It will be in the description here and also at the top of the comments. But this is my summary of what was said. So she's talking about, first, the defendant had 2 experienced attorneys that were granted leave to withdraw, and that left a disjointed, unprepared trial counsel with no singular defense strategy. She said that the trial team conducted no meaningful voir dire and acquiesced to the seating of jurors who were unqualified to serve as jurors. And she went on to talk about the various jurors that were problematic and that should have been further questioned. Some should not have been seated at all. So, number one in her argument is the defendant was denied effective assistance of counsel where his trial attorneys failed to conduct a meaningful voir dire of potential jurors and challenge unqualified jurors, some of whom had watched the inflammatory docuseries Surviving R. Kelly or were familiar with prior accusations of sexual abuse, and the jury was neither fair nor impartial. So she went on to talk about that in detail, and you can go listen to that video for word of what that is. Most of them that she challenged had seen the docuseries, and they also knew of prior allegations, so they came into it with a preconceived bias against the defendant, which of course means he cannot have a fair trial. She went on further to say that defendant's counsel failed to challenge several jurors who were clearly unqualified, and they had preconceived beliefs about his guilt. Trial counsel was mostly silent throughout voir dire. Some of these questions that were answered raised red flags, and it proved that the jurors were not qualified to serve, but counsel made no effort to drill down on troubling representations. Most troubling, most of the defendant's jurors were aware of prior allegations. Several seated jurors had actually seen the docu-series Surviving R. Kelly. It defies all logic that a juror could possibly remain indifferent. So she went on to say, court, meaning Judge Ann Donnelly, could not make cause challenges for defendant Robert Kelly or do defense counsel's job for it. The judge, Ann Donnelly, couldn't make cause challenges for Robert Kelly or do the defense counsel's job for it. So she cannot do the job of Canick, Scholar, Nicole, or Farinella. Trial counsel failed in its duties. Not a single question was asked of the juror about his impressions of the documentary, referring to one of the jurors. And then one of the jurors said he would give it a shot at trying to be fair and impartial. She went on to say trial counsel not only didn't move to disqualify the juror, he did not even ask the court to probe deeply. So trial counsel on the New York case was Nicole Blankbecker, Thomas Farinella. At the point that Canick signed on and Scholar, Canick took over the case. And we know that because it's in all the court transcripts. You see here, she's referring to trial counsel, but she, instead of saying her, which would have indicated Nicole Blankbecker was lead, instead of saying them, which would indicate all of them had a voice, she specifically says he. Trial counsel not only didn't move to disqualify the juror, he, singular, one man, one trial person, one of Robert's defense members, did not even ask the court to probe deeply. She would not have used the term he if it was a she or if it was a them decision. She then says, nor did he ask the court to inquire about the defendant's views concerning the Me Too. Again, he, not she, which would indicate Nicole Blankbecker was the one leading this, not them, which would indicate all of them had equal say. She keeps saying he, which means one of the men on the trial team who was leading this entire cause is the one that made these decisions. And we all know that was Devereux Canick. It is beyond comprehension that trial counsel would not have sought to inquire further of these jurors. Then she went on to say, indicated that he intended to challenge this alternate for cause, but no motion was formally made. So Devereux Canick meant to go further, but he didn't file the motion. It was counsel's job to elicit as much information as possible to determine whether the juror could actually be fair. Then she went on to say, there is a reasonable probability that but for counsel's unprofessional errors, the result of these proceedings would have been different. If not for unprofessional errors, that means counsel was unprofessional in the mistakes that they made. His representation was unreasonable under the prevailing professional norms. So she's spelling it out step by step. His attorney's representation was unreasonable under the prevailing professional norms. That means based on normal attorneys, they were unprofessional. And their unprofessional errors are the reason that it could have turned out different. So she's saying where he failed to question clearly biased jurors. That means Bonjean spoke to Robert. She spoke to all of the attorneys, and she understood very clearly who had lead role, who took on the lead position in this, because she's not saying she's not saying them. She keeps saying he, one male, one man. And we know from all of the court documents that was Devereux Canick. So she put the responsibility solely on his lawyers as to why he needs a new trial. But the brunt of that was on Devereaux Canick, trial counsel abdicated all responsibility to conduct a meaningful voir dire. So what does this say? It says Nicole signed on as lead attorney once the others were released of their duties. And Nicole and Tom were signed on. Within days, Canick and Scholar signed on as attorneys. Canick immediately took over. So Canick is the one that did the voir dire for the jury selection. He was the one that made the decisions, and he was the lead throughout the trial. Nicole did minor work in the trial, and Tom Farinella did minor work during the trial. It was Devereaux Canick's show. And you cannot get a new trial because you had incompetent attorneys. But based on the jury selection specifically, she's trying to push that issue to get a new trial. The Mute R. Kelly campaign stopped the flow of R. Kelly's income. Sony releasing him hemorrhaged him financially. His inability to tour. He had back taxes because of poor management and accounting, that the government seized assets for that. And then he had back child support. He's been not in a position to hire the top-notch legal team necessary to get through this entire case, which is why he was compromised in the New York case. He needs all his fans, supporters, or anyone who wants to help to send money directly to him, not through a third party, because he has an upcoming Chicago case, and he must have great legal representation to defend himself to the best of his ability. Mr. Kelly is fighting a case in Chicago, and he needs all of the assistance that anyone can give from all of his fans and supporters around the world. There are 3 ways that you can get money to Mr. Kelly. 1, you can send money via Western Union. That's for $300 or less. That will get to him fast. Or you can go to the BOP.gov website and send money via credit card. Those are the fastest ways to get it to him. Or you can mail a money order to him to P.O. Box 474701, Des Moines, Iowa, 50947-0001. It will go directly to Mr. Kelly, no third party, no one in between, and he will have a record of who sent what amount, and from where it was sent. So it is your way to directly help, directly impact, to directly put your hands on R. Kelly and show him that you love him, show that his fans from around the world are supporting him, and they want to assist him in fighting for his freedom.